Good evening. Welcome, everyone. Welcome back to How to Get Funding Fast and Efficiently, my weekly live that I host every Thursday evening from 6 p.m. Central European Time on my social media platforms. Today, I want to go through the topic of corporate governance, like lay a foundation on corporate governance. And in this session, I'm going to address what is corporate governance and who plays a part in it, how it works, why it is relevant to startups and scale-ups, and when does it become relevant. So let's dig in. The what and the who. Corporate governance is all about how does a company function? Yeah, how does it make its decisions? How does it reach decisions? Who has control over the company, who participates in the decision-making process and in which decisions effectively. What can founders do in a company? What can directors do in the company? What are their powers? What is the relationship between the shareholders or the founders and its directors? What kind of accountability, responsibility, rights, and obligations are created in each type of relationship within a company and outside the company? What kind of accountability, reliability, rights, and obligations are created, like I said, also outside of the company in relation to other stakeholders? So, corporate governance is essentially the way in which a company manages the relationships with and between its shareholders, directors, and management, but also other stakeholders in the company. What do I mean by that? And this is the who, right? The company has employees, auditors and accountants, customers and suppliers, but also it is a part of society. It establishes relationships with the government, the environment, and so on. So in other words, corporate governance is the way in which a company behaves both internally and externally. And it is also about accountability, both from an internal point of view, but also in an external, outward perspective. Let me give you a few figures, the numbers. There are currently around 24 million companies in the European Union, of which approximately 80% are limited liability companies. The source for this information is the European portal, European Union's portal, which you can also find on my blog on spotlegal.io. Around 98 to 99% of limited liability companies are small and medium-sized enterprises. So, given the significant number of limited liability companies in the European Union, in this session, I will share about the rules, practices, and processes by which a company, a limited liability company, is directed and controlled, and not specifically about corporations or stock companies, which differ greatly, have specific corporate governance rules, special rules in Europe, and I'm only going to limit this session to limited liability companies. Let's have a look at how corporate governance works. Corporate governance starts with forming the company. It starts at the very beginning with the very basics and continues with operating and maintaining the company, but also with winding it up. It starts with your very own company structure when you start to create that yourself, with how you design your share capital structure, whether there are any special voting or decision-making rights. What do your constitutive documents provide in respect to specific areas in which you will be defining the operating legal framework for your company? This constitutive part is governed by a series of legal documents that you, as a founder, enter into with your co-founders and shareholders, and which govern your relationships in this newly created context. And it continues, and it's relevant to all your company policies and procedures, where you deal with operating your company in more detail, let's say in day-to-day business, department by department, or vertical by vertical, or business unit by business unit, however you are structuring your business, your company. So here you would include things like working staff manuals and papers, internal HR policies and procedures, general and specific company policies and procedures on, let's say, whistleblowing, commercial practices, anti-bribery, gifting, compliance programs. Now, why is this important and why I brought this topic in this session? According to statutory law requirements under company law, you will need to present and get approval of the business plan and budget, the financial statements of the company on a yearly basis. Present any investment plans, distribution of profits, or where you decided not to distribute, but rather to reinvest. Why have you made that decision? And this will create a necessary track record of sound decision-making, management, and governance in your company that your investors will look into in the due diligence process, with the aim, of course, to understand that there is a long strategy and vision for your company. Finally, maintaining a company means, aside from keeping up-to-date policies and procedures and constitutional documents, and it also includes whatever has to do with authorizations and licenses and permits that you require in order to legally operate your business. Are you maintaining your patents and trademarks? Are they enforced and up to date? But also, are you maintaining reporting and accountability towards your stakeholders? So when does corporate governance become relevant? In raising finance for your company, whether you are a startup or already in a scaling phase, you will be required to show that you have created and laid the foundation for your corporate governance in a transparent, compliant, and operationally viable way that makes sense for your company. But also that you are maintaining everything up to date and that it is not just a paper thing. On paper, it looks good, but in reality, things are different. Specifically, that you are following your own policies and procedures and compliance programs and enforce them when the case is needed. So this will come up very early on in the even pre-due diligence process or talks that you have with investors, and is effectively scrutinized within the due diligence process, which covers, as I mentioned before, not just the financial, legal, tax due diligence, but you may be subject to technical due diligence and operational due diligence. And so at the end of the day, it has to be a holistic approach to understanding the business and the risks, but also your consistency and accountability and your ability to drive the business going forward. Post-financing, corporate governance becomes an important part of your everyday life, so to say, because monitoring and reporting and accountability tools become an essential part of your relationship with your investors. Maybe they will have a board seat. You will hold probably more frequent general meetings of shareholders, where certain reserved matters will be for the shareholders to decide, others for the board. And so there is going to be a constant reporting and accountability that is created between all the levels in your company. So join me again next week as I share more on how to prepare for funding fast and efficiently. I am Avocat Olivia Marcu-Iordanescu, and you can ring my bell here on LinkedIn or follow me on the other social media platforms for more updates. Thank you.